Broadleaf trees are such stunning creatures, completely bare in winter, producing lush green in spring, providing a majestic canopy all summer and then fading out with jubilant colours in autumn, hosting wildlife and producing oxygen on top of this magnificent display. When I grew up in Germany, a country that has a woodland cover of over 30%, that equates to about 90 billion trees. I always lived within walking distance of a mature native woodland, and sometimes I miss my walks in the woods here where we live now in the west of Ireland. Ireland is amongst the countries with the lowest forest cover in Europe, with only 11%. And just 2% of this area are covered with native woodlands. So I jumped at the opportunity when Finny asked me last autumn whether I and my horses could help him pull some timber out of his mature oak and beech woodland on his farm. Once upon a time, Ireland used to look like this. It was covered by about 80% of woodland until the first Mesolithic farmers about 7,000 years ago started clearing trees to make space for fields. This clearing continued pretty much over the next few thousand years until by the end of the Bronze Age, about 2,500 years ago, most hills had been cleared of woodland and been replaced by blanket bogs. Jumping ahead to the 16th century, charcoal production for smelting iron was widespread across Ireland and led to another phase of woodland clearance, followed by large exports of Irish timber in the 19th century to Britain for shipbuilding and house construction. By then, native woodlands could only be found in inaccessible hill areas and in large private estates. Finny's woodland has a similar history. Most trees had been felled for use in construction work in his grandfather's youth. But people luckily were wise enough to replant the area, which over the decades turned back into a beautiful broadleaf woodland. Finny felled some mature trees in his woodland last year with the aim to thin it to make more room for the other trees. And he's hoping to use the timber, mainly oak, for making barrels to mature his homemade whiskey. Some of the trees, because the woodland is quite dense, didn't fall but got caught up in other standing trees. Others fell along steep slopes or into thickets. The part of the woodland where we were asked to work in is quite dense, on a rocky steep hillside and no way accessible by quad, tractor or lorry, unless you'd fell a lot more trees for an access path. But then heavy machines would easily slide along the steep shallow ground, probably ripping the little soil there is off the rocks, causing irreversible damage to the ground. When working with these conditions, it just makes sense to think of horses to help pull the timber out. Working with horses in steep and uneven terrain, trying to extract hanging trees, is probably the most dangerous work you can do with horses. But then Flora is a 1 in a million horse who took to her task with a calm, steady mind, putting her full strength and stamina into the job. We had to climb up a steep bank and down a few rocky steps to get to this site, pretty much inaccessible to wheeled vehicles. Perfect for using horsepower to extract timber, which otherwise would have been left behind. We pulled the logs towards a steep slope above a forestry track and rolled them down the slope by hand so that the tractor could pick them up later.
Hello, Flora.
In the afternoon, Flora enjoyed a break in the autumn sun, and Henry got to do his part. Again, these logs had been felled up a steep slope, and the only access was going through dense woodland and past rocky outcrops. Looking at the thin layer of damp soil, it is not hard to imagine how much damage a tractor or other wheeled, fuel-powered heavy machine would cause. Never mind the trees that would have to be felled to make a track wide enough to fit the machine. There are many cons against using horses as power source in logging. Relatively slow speed and limited work hours, constant overheads for feed, power limited by the physique and fitness of the horse, to name a few.
Here we go, up again.
How are you?
At least we don't have a load up the hill, we only have a load down the hill. Come on, boy. Go a bit more back.
It's steep enough, isn't it?
Steep enough.
Yeah.
And again. Yeah, no, he's moving the whole trunk, isn't he? So,
Okay.
one more time. Come on, boy. Yeah. Good thing. Well, I just move it up a little bit and then he might reposition it. Okay. Right, Henry, boy. Nothing happened for a long time.
They're well trained, aren't they?
Yeah.
Up in Berlin.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right.
Is he bringing that one down? You might be able to put it this way now.
Away.
You want to try it out this way now?
Yeah.
But this situation in Finney's Woods just shows that there are niches where good, old, steady, reliable horsepower is not only justified as power source, but excels above any modern technology. Well done, Flora and Henry, and best of luck to Finney and his barrel making.